All right. I think we're live.
Hi.
Hey, Micah.
Hi,
Happy
Shannon.
Monday.
Happy Monday. How you doing today? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, well, so last week we did a Facebook Live on mindset, and you and I kind of felt like we wanted to do a part two because it felt like there were some missing pieces of the conversation that feel important. And so we wanted to just dig in and share a few more tips as we enter into this holiday season.
Yeah, so we talked about our personal kind of mindset strategies and also the things that we actually do to try to have self-care that leads to a healthy mindset and the ability to show up ready for anything. And we talked about how we've built these things in our schedule, or we mentioned them, but I don't think we really dove into what a process that was to get these things in place, and also to even figure out what it was that works for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those are important because oftentimes we're being bombarded by messages of self-care and by messages of mindset and all these things. And it can be a lot easier said than done to, get yourself to an exercise class or make time for meditation or whatever it is. And so I think just the process of, one, recognizing like, okay, this matters, mental health and taking care of my mental health is important, to actually doing it consistently and having routines and habits that are in place, is not always a short walk. So we wanted to kind of dive into maybe what that walk looked like for us and some things maybe we've learned that we can offer.
And I want to just kind of throw something out there in the beginning. Is it really bugs me how self-care, that term, has been so commercialized, and it's such an important component to having good mental health. And I just want to take away the buy a bubble bath and get a facial kind of piece to it, because it's about consistency and it's about really finding those things that make you feel connected to yourself, help you slow down, help you process your feelings, help you process your experience in the world. And so this idea that oh, buy this basket and, you're going to have self-care. Well, if you don't open the basket full of, the spa treatment, it doesn't do any good. So I want to kind of pull the commercialization off of it so that we can really talk about the things that we have experienced that work for us and have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think, another kind of misconception that there's, always a bunch of talk around is like self-care is selfish. And, this idea of, putting yourself first or filling your tank or filling your bucket, that there's a lot of people around us that are hurting or struggling. And, even the people closest to us might be having a hard time. And so to take time away and do something that's just for you often can feel incredibly challenging, and there can be a lot of guilt. And the ability to give ourselves permission to be able to say, this actually is really important, and maybe even more important than, these other priorities in my life, is really hard. And I just want to acknowledge that at the get-go too.
Yeah, and that's really why we wanted to follow up, right? Is we didn't want to act flippant that having a morning routine or being able to play tennis in the middle of a workday are things that were easy for us to build into our schedule or would be easy for other people to do. None of this is about hitting the easy button, right? That's why we. Sorry, I've been hearing that from you. It's right over here. Just kidding. No, it's obviously it's a practice to figure these things out. And again, that's why we wanted to have this part 2 to our mindset chat.
Yeah. So, I guess maybe first is like permission, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but how did you give yourself permission to begin to, say this thing matters to me, or doing this thing every day or every week is important and I'm going to prioritize it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, thinking back to COVID, it kind of slowed everything down and we rediscovered hobbies, or we had the time to schedule them in. And that's how I started to notice that I really liked playing tennis and having it regular. There's a lot of effort into scheduling a match with a friend who has a busy schedule, but if it's a class that I show up for every week, all of those hard parts are done for me. So during COVID, I was able to start building that into my schedule during the day. And then it's easy to protect it because it's already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you know, this takes a little bit of like self-awareness, because what is going to be the practice or the habits that work for us, or work for Micah or work for me, are going to be different. And so I think it's about, for some people it might be going and doing something is the thing that like brings them joy, or is a stress relief, or is a way of filling their tank. For other people it's going to be taking things off their plate, right? Paring down. And I think for me, what I shared in the last video was I give myself a slower morning. So I protect some time at the start of my day, because I just noticed, we run a business, we see clients, we, are constantly going, and the pace of the work that we do can be really like, drinking from a fire hose sometimes. It's just, nonstop. And I feel really grateful. I love what I do, and I, love doing it with you, but it can be a lot. And so I recognize just, I don't know when, the jumping into a day and like doing immediately really spiked my nervous system. And I just was like on edge, or felt kind of frazzled, like I couldn't get my grounding in my day. And so like, I think it started slowly with like, I just need to do a mini meditation in the morning. And then, from there, it kind of built out a little bit to recognize like a little meditation and then some movement for me just really helped me to ground and stay centered. And so the permission giving comes from, I recognize now that then I can show up in the way that I want to with my clients, with you, in the work that we do, in what we're trying to create and build, if I protect that hour in the morning. And so that's how I give myself permission, is I zoom out to see like, this is how I can be able to do the things that I say matter to me in my day, if I can start my day in this way.
Yeah. And I think your example also about finding something that took root a little bit and then you built upon that is actually one of the most important insights about self-care. Because again, we just hear so much information and it's about start this and do that. And that's overwhelming. But if we find something we're drawn to and we begin it, then we can figure out what our path with that will be in building a habit. With tennis during COVID, it was very, it was much slower. I had a lot more time and I actually had like 2 classes scheduled in. And as we got back to our, busier times and COVID lessened, I actually got rid of one of those days because it was actually having an opposite effect. I wasn't feeling joyful or full of energy when I got to my workday. I was feeling behind. And so being able to just edit that and keep the one in the middle of the week where I can use that energy towards the end when we all get tired has been really helpful. But I didn't know that at the onset, right?
Yeah.
It's not that obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. So giving yourself permission to try things, to pay attention to like what feels good, what works, what doesn't work, what actually gives you the outcome that you're looking for, whether that's energy or stress relief or grounding or centering. And maybe there will be some editing or deleting or adding to that routine to kind of get to the place of like, okay, this feels like it's working. And maybe it's always a work in progress. Maybe it's always shifting to fit our lives and the particular time in our lives too as well. So
Yeah, the different stages of our life where sometimes we're busy and sometimes we're less busy. I think it's really important to remember the constant in life is change, right? Like that's the constant. And so with that in mind, whether it's our career or our stage of life we're going through, our self-care routine is going to be different too, because we'll be needing different things from it.
Yeah, yeah. And this year, I had a big loss, and I felt as though this was a particularly challenging year for me. And so I mentioned in last week's conversation, I actually added a second meditation. And that's not easy, right? Like I'm like, oh God, I already did it today, but I just needed it. Like I just felt more easily frazzled, more easily overwhelmed, moving to anxiousness or anxiety more quickly because of just kind of the personal things I was navigating. And so, again, being willing to adjust or edit. I don't know if I'll do, twice daily meditations forever and ever, but right now I feel like I really need them. And so, making time for that has allowed me to feel like I could grasp that center a little bit more easily again.
Yeah. That's exactly it. So, giving yourself the space to have a practice and being aware of how that practice is fitting your lifestyle and your needs throughout the year.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I thought about after our last conversation was that sometimes our healthy habits, our self care practices aren't convenient for the people in our lives. And it can be challenging to ask for the time, to take the time, to recognize that by taking this time, you might be taking something from someone else or inconveniencing someone else. And I think that can get tricky, especially when it comes to partners or family or business partners, whatever it may be. How do you think about that, manage that when it comes to, oh, this thing might actually be good for me, but inconvenient for someone else?
Yeah, I mean, that one's a tricky question for me because I think because I have kids and a family that depends on me to do the scheduling, if I don't schedule my bit in, it won't happen. So often I'm just reacting. So I don't know that I'm always able to kind of zoom out and see how it might be for other folks because I just know how badly I need it. I do know that I also always want to gift it to other people. And so I feel like sometimes I'm the gifter and sometimes I'm the taker. And that's kind of how I navigate that. But the
Mhm.
biggest piece is just the people I love. I want them to do the things that they love. And if I can support them to do that time, have that time to do those things or create those practices, then I want to grant them that. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think too, it's kind of similar to like the conversation I had with myself, which is like, I'm doing this because it allows me to do these other things. And I think it's the same kind of thing if we can put language to or be able to communicate to our partners, our kids, our colleagues, whatever. Like this is the thing that then allows me to like hit the ground running or to be fully present and be able to be in relationship with you in the way that I want or whatever it is, to be able to kind of say, here's why and here's what I've learned. I think then it maybe allows other people to be like, oh, of course I want you to do that, versus like, oh, this is annoying to me because you just got home from work and you're going for a run and I actually need some help right now. It's like, oh, but if I recognize this is the thing that allows my partner to then be present when they get home from that run, maybe I want to give them that half hour, those 45 minutes.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why I started this conversation wanting to like take the commercialization out of the self-care because allowing your partner to go for a run or giving people space to meditate or whatever it is, it's definitely not what we are told is self-care, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we see it in others, we want to identify it as that piece of self-care that leads to healthy mental health. And it is what the mindset conversation is, right? We can't show up to things in the way that we want to most, focused, cued in, ready to go, or ready to lend a listening ear, whatever it might be in your day that you're showing up to. These self-care practices are what fuels your ability to do that, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I just had a thought, and I hope this doesn't come off as super negative, but I do think ultimately you said that it's that you want to gift it to other people, but I kind of think ultimately we're all a little bit selfish. And so it's like, I don't know if we immediately go to like, yes, take the time, or yes, like go and do that thing, go on the yoga retreat or whatnot. And so it's like, I do think we have to be our own advocate. Like we have to first say, this is why this matters. This is why this is a non-negotiable. I know that I can't do life or show up at work or in my relationships if I'm not doing this, then communicating it, because I don't think we can expect other people to be like, go do that thing, or of course, that's great. They're not always going to respond that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I was sharing with you earlier that my husband comes home from business trips and wants to go work out, and all I want to do is dump children on him. But I do realize that the more we talk about this, the more I, obviously spend a lot of time reading articles about this and watching YouTube videos and things like that. The more you marinate in the idea of what self-care is for you and for the people in your lives, it does become easier to gift it,
Yep.
because it kind of pulls off that, I don't know, veil of what we call selfishness and gives you the real picture of what's happening. And then it becomes easier in the moment to gift it. Still annoying sometimes.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so starting with giving yourself permission, a recognition of just how vital and important it is, then being able to, communicate why this matters to the people that it might be affecting as well. What's kind of the third tip we wanted to share about how to kind of get things that are consistently, taking care of you, your energy, your mental health?
I do think it's often very little things too. Like we're talking about big things, scheduling, carving out time, but sometimes it is about getting your nails done. Sometimes it is about saying, I haven't talked to that friend in a long time. I'm actually going to schedule a call with her.
Mhm.
I want to kind of make it smaller too, so that it feels a little bit more accessible. And there is a spectrum of self-care. And sometimes, particularly right now with the holidays coming, the new year about to start, a lot of wrapping things up, sometimes the little pieces are going to be more accessible. And I guess I just want to give people permission to do those too.
For you, what would be a little thing that you notice, like, oh, when I take the time to do this, I just, it makes a shift, or it moves the needle for me in a positive way?
Well, I got my nails done this weekend with my daughters, and that's kind of a financial investment these days. So yeah, truly. So I don't do it often, but I did. I made sure we did it this weekend because we just needed to slow down, and that was the way to do it in a busy nail salon. So it is sometimes about, finding the things that make you feel, I don't know, pampered, or that feel luxurious that you don't do all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, this is an interesting balance, because the same thing that I find can often fill my cup is the same thing that can really quickly deplete me. And so for me, I get, a lot of energy from connection and from, really quality time from the people in my life. But I also have to pay attention to like, how much of that am I doing? Because I can get really satiated and filled quite quickly. And if I'm not paying attention, especially around this time of year where there's a lot of opportunities to see people and do fun things and connect, or some obligations that you're not as excited about, that I can get pretty zapped and depleted quite easily. And so it's this balance of really thinking about what are the things I want to say yes to, like what really is important. And then how do I make sure that, the things that I can't do, I can bow out of graciously, or I'm just making sure that there's time for recharge, re-energize in between maybe some of the things that I'm excited to do. So it doesn't end up, being kind of the opposite of what I want it to, right? I want to feel connected and feel excited versus depleted, exhausted.
Yeah, and I think somebody reached out to you after one of your recent Instagram reels about boundaries. And I think that that is such an important thing right now during the holidays. It's just so busy and there are a lot of demands. So being able to, say no, and you said do it gracefully. I say just do it, if like, I don't want to come to your party because I have to drive 2 hours to get there. You can be honest, but if it's a little bit
Yeah.
easier to say, oh, sorry, prior commitment, little white lies in this area, exactly what's needed sometimes to make that space.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just wanted to hop on. It's a quick one, but we just want to say that we are thinking of everyone during this season. If you're having a hard time or you're feeling overwhelmed, just wanted to send a little care your way and some thoughtful tips on some things that, help us to kind of navigate, and hope everyone's doing okay out there. And we wish you a really warm holiday season. So yeah.
I also hope that some of these little conversations we've had here and in the last live maybe inspire folks to think about how they want to start 2023. There really is something that's very deep in humans about the start of new things, the start of a week, the start of a year. It really is a very rich place for us to begin new habits.
Yeah.
And so maybe some of these little tips or insights or things that you can work into your self-care practice in 2023.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Well, we will be back on here in the new year, wishing everyone a happy holiday season. And thank you so much for being a part of our community. And we wish you well. Take care.
Well, take care.